Hi, everybody. I'm here because I wrote a book called Being Your Cat, which tries to say what it's like to be a cat. Now, obviously, we can't really know, but what we can do is use our imaginations combined with our learning so that we can get a little bit into the mind of a cat, and that will help us understand them better. So I've got only 20 minutes, so I'm going to give a very quick scamper round about how you might experience the world if you're a cat, how you might show pain, how you might show illness, what you can hear and what might upset you, what you can smell and how you're going to use your nose, your individual sociability to other cats and your individual sociability to humans, because boy cats are very individual. There isn't anywhere an average cat. So if you're a cat, how do you show pain? Well, you don't, is the answer. As little as possible. Because cats are prey as well as being predators themselves, and they can be eaten by other animals. And any animal which is prey knows that they've got to hide their pain, otherwise they stand out to a predator as an easy meal. Now, do owners recognise pain? No, they mostly don't. I find it difficult to recognise pain. Do all vets recognise pain? Well, most do, I'm sure, but there may be ones or two that find it difficult because, after all, they only have the cat on their table for a little while. So here's my cat Toby, and I know he's in pain. I can tell that because his muzzle is tight, his eyes are narrowing with pain, and he's turning his face away from me, which normally he wouldn't do because he's worried that I'm going to do something which will hurt him. However, there is a bit of a solution for this, and it's called the Feline Grimace app, which you can get here, and I highly recommend it to anybody who works with cats, and you can pass it on to owners. Please do, because it's a wonderful idea, and it'll help people recognise the facial signs of pain. So if your cat, what might show you were ill? Well, here's three cats. They're all elderly and they're all looking as if they haven't had a square meal. What we're looking for in older cats are things like arthritis, hypothyroidism, kidney disease, diabetic neuropathy, dental problems, gingivitis. And some of these, well, most of these really need a veterinary workup, which is why as behaviourists, we only work on a veterinary referral, and some of these need a euthanasia discussion. Top left is a cat with hypothyroidism, uh, very elderly. Top right is James, a lovely, loving cat. He had gingivitis, chronic gingivitis. When I got him, he had had a steroid injection and ate like a pig. But by the time he left me 4 weeks later, the steroids were wearing off and he was unable to eat because it hurt so much. And now down below, and this is really interesting, is a cat with diabetic neuropathy. It's called the plantigrade stance. I was talking to the owner and I looked at her cat, took a picture actually, and said to her, "Look, I think your cat needs to see a vet. Look how it's standing." "Oh no," she said, "it's just old age." So if you're a cat, what kind of noises might upset you? Well, we know cats have fantastically acute hearing, and they have the biggest range of hearing from low to high of all mammals so far tested. So let's think of some things which might upset them. Well, noises in the utility room from the washing machines or the dryer might upset them. And they may be hearing various buzzes and clicks and ultrasounds, which we don't hear at all from these machines. Home improvements noises will upset them, maybe even home improvements that are happening next door if you live in a terraced house. Baby cries, loud or unusual music if a cat hasn't learned to sort of just ignore it. Roadworks nearby may upset them. And what are some of the results? Well, some of the results may be litter tray aversion or perhaps urine spraying. If your cat, how do you use scent? Well, you use scent for long distance social communication, allowing you not to meet up with other cats. Here's my cat William, and he's sniffing at somewhere where a cat has sprayed. It will tell him when that cat sprayed. and how long ago it was. And it will probably tell him whether that cat was on heat or not, which will be useless to him because he has it bits off. Because he has, remember, he will also be smelling pheromones, which you will have been told about through his veromonasal organ. Now, if he knows that cat, because every cat and every human and every dog has a signature scent for a cat, he will know, oh, he thinks it's Fluffy from next door. Now, the other way that they use scent is for making a family scent, which tells them it's all right, I'm at home. And they rub against you and they rub against the furniture. They may rub against other cats if they get on with other cats. But when the other cats rub against you on the place that the other cat rubbed, the scent gets mixed up into a reassuring family scent. So what's going to upset cats in scent terms? Well, in shelters, ruthless cleaning, a weekly cleaning routine which cleans everything in the pen, is going to mean that they have to start recreating a family scent there. That's going to be very upsetting for them. Other scent disruptions are visits to the vet. If one cat comes back from visiting the vet, the other may attack it. New cats, of course, new humans come into the household, and new jobs. If you take a job in the healthcare industry, you may start smelling like a vet, which will upset your cat. And then there's some minor things which I think are very interesting. Christmas trees. In the UK, Christmas trees are kept outside on the pavement, and they are often peed on by passing dogs. So no wonder some cats will pee on the Christmas tree. Shopping bags. If you live in a semi-detached house or a terraced house, you put down your shopping bag and you get out your keys and you open the front door and then you pick up the shopping bag and then your cat sprays on the bag because the bag has picked up the scent of a dog that lifted his leg on your front door. And of course, the obvious ones like visitors and parties. Now, the other thing is if you're going to be very individual in how social you are. I haven't got to tell you more about this, but I'm sure your course will cover it. And we need to distinguish cat groups within a household. Just because cats live in the same house doesn't mean they're a group. They're an aggregation, if you like. So we've got to look for the cats that are definitely grouped and friends with each other. And we look for mutual grooming, like these two black cats below, and we look for sleeping, touching. And we've got to help owners recognise this. So how do cats cope when they're not friends, but they're not necessarily enemies? They cope by social distancing. I had a cat that every morning, my tortoiseshell cat lived in the top room in a heated bed, and Toby, the ginger, lived downstairs in the kitchen. So what are we going to do? We're going to help them socially distance from each other. We could help them timeshare within different areas of the house, and we must make sure that both of them have safe havens. We may need to block sight lines that show cats outside. Feliway Optimum will be useful. Obviously, careful, slow introductions of new cats. And if it's like these two, we've got to think about rehoming. These cats absolutely loathe each other. Luckily, they don't live in the same house. Now, this is them just doing a normal standoff because I interrupted the fight that usually happens. They're not going to change, I'm afraid, because, as I'm going to finally end on, if you fall out with another cat, can you easily be reconciled? Well, the problem is that cats have very limited um, signals of appeasement or reconciliation. They're not like dogs. They're not that social. There are one or two things that a cat can do. It can turn its head away to stop a glaring match. Look at the black and white cat on at the bottom there. And if they are they think they're going to be attacked, they can roll on their backs. Now, there's been a lot of disagreement. About 20 years ago, everyone disagreed about whether cats had appeasement signals. I think we now realise they probably don't. This William, who's on his back, I don't think he was appeasing the black cat. I think he was lying on his back so that if the black cat pounced on him, he had all his claws ready to rake him and hurt him. So what do cats do when they've got to get on with other cats? They socially distance, they avoid each other. And on the right-hand side is a photograph of a cat sanctuary for feral cats. I think it's a disgrace, actually, but there you go. It's a wonderful photo. It shows you how they cope. They have coped by carefully spacing themselves out. None of them, as far as I can tell, are close to each other. They're either higher or lower, or they just are very carefully spaced out, and that's how they cope, and that's what we've got to help them to do. In the wild, these feral cats would not be living with each other. They would have dispersed and kept away from each other. I just hope that that sanctuary no longer exists. So I'm going to also play you a bit of video about subtle cat bullying. Here is my ginger cat, William, who is used to bully my tortoiseshell cat. They never actually fought. They could cope to living together, but there were moments when they found it rather difficult. And what he's doing is sitting there so she can't come in through the cat flap. So what did I do? Put it in a second cat flap, and I actually put a sort of cat station in between so he couldn't sit in the middle and ambush both of them. So these are pretty subtle moves, actually. They will block stairs, block doorways, they'll block access to litter trays, access to food, access to humans. I went to a house where as soon as one cat walked into the room, the other cat would leave. And there's the problem of unwanted play, which my ginger cat used to do. He would want to play with the tortoiseshell and she didn't like it. So what are we going to do about that? Well, lots of resources, of course, lots of different locations for litter trays and food, and maybe think about time sharing human affection. My tortoiseshell spent all night with me. Well, the ginger cat had his own room. And as I said, there were 2 cat flaps there. That worked quite well, actually. So how social are you to humans? Well, don't believe the labels. Here, a feral kitten, well, actually a juvenile feral, and after 3 weeks I'd got her so she liked to cuddle. She wasn't happy with other people, but she was happy with me, and I had to tell her new owners, give her 3 weeks and she'll be cuddling with you. Here is the petting and biting syndrome, so called, which actually should be called petting and nipping because it wasn't a serious bite. There's 2 things about this. I stroked too much, and the other thing I did, you'll see that I actually moved my hand right down to the base of the tail, which perhaps was a sensitive area for this cat. I mean, what could she do to tell me she didn't wanted me to stop? All she could do was nip. And then there are cats that really bite. And this is one, his ears are forward. He is not frightened. He is frustrated because he's in a pen. But when he came to live with me as a foster cat, he wasn't, tucked away in a pen. He was quite happy to come towards me and solicit affection, and then he gave me the most gigantic bite. I'm afraid I handed him back to the shelter because he had put 2 people into hospital previously. He couldn't be put in stables because he would have walked up to people and solicited affection and maybe bitten them. I think it was probably a play bite, but I didn't have him long enough to be sure, and I wish I had had a video of it, but I didn't. It caught me by mistake. Here are some resources that you may find useful. My YouTube channel has most of these videos. My website has references. There's a really good Battersea Dogs Home YouTube here about how to stroke cats' sensitive areas. I would like you to have a look. If you're going to work in cat shelters, please look at this video about feigned sleep in the shelter. This cat had nowhere to escape. He was being glared at by humans, so he pretended to be asleep. You can tell from his body that he was highly stressed, but he closed his eyes as if to say, well, if I can't see you, maybe you can't see me. There's a useful webinar on confrontational cats that bite by Sarah Heath here. And then there's the details of the Feline Grimace app. So thank you all for listening, and I'm now free to take questions. I hope I can deal with them.